All right. Good afternoon, or should say good evening to those of you on the East Coast. Good afternoon to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to this exclusive edition of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And today we have a treat for you all because we are nearing the approach of the horror action comedy known as They Will Kill You, set to hit theaters on this coming Friday. And let me bring it up now. You can probably see it in the background right now, but directed by Kirill Sokolov, from a script written by both Sokolov as well as Alex Lidvack. The film follows a young woman who must survive the night at the Virgil, the demonic cult's mysterious and twisted death trap of a lair, before becoming their next offering in a uniquely brazen, big screen battle of epic kills and wickedly dark humor. Now, if you know me, you know that I love my film scores. I'm excited to welcome today's guests as they are the composer for this crazy ride of a film. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Grammy and three-time Emmy winning composer Carlos Rivera. Let me bring him on now. Carlos, how are you, sir? Hold on, I think you're muted, so let me unmute you. There you go, sir.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just to hit the ground running, well, first off,
Mhm.
congratulations with the film in and of itself, because
Thank you.
being able to work on any film and complete that process, it can be a huge endeavor. But
Yes.
to just talk about those early days, if you will, could you share for you? I know we were talking about it off stage of
Mhm.
your upbringing, and what were those scores for you growing up that gave you a passion to now do to be in the said field that you're in now?
I mean, first of all, again, so cool to be here and have you're interested in talking to me about this. I grew up in Central America. I was born in Washington, D.C., and I grew up in Central America. Yeah, man, yeah, big heads up for the awesomeness of that city. And I was in Miami for a few years, then in Guatemala, then in Costa Rica, then in Panama. And growing up in Central America, I always thought that film composers and musicians were born in an island of music somewhere else, and they all just came about, and that's what you were born. You shall be composer, you shall be actor, you shall be whatever it is. Like it never occurred to me that I could bridge that gap at all. And coming back to Miami in my teens and then moving to LA in my 20s is when the opportunities start to kind of present themselves as a possibility. As a matter of fact, I was in Costa Rica when I saw a commercial because we had just gotten MTV. That's how long ago it was. And there was a commercial for a Fender guitar, like a
Wow.
guy you could Fender guitar. I was like, "Wait, you can buy those? You can? What do you mean you can buy? Like you can buy one?" Like I just couldn't conceive of that. So it
Yeah,
was a very long gap to bridge, and then I think that the whole idea of the music that was influencing me at the time was, of course, because I'm a kid of the 80s, really 70s and 80s, is John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith. And you
absolutely.
know, you talk about geeking out on scores. I mean, for me, my favorite soundtrack is Jerry Goldsmith's The Great Train Robbery, which is a weird deep cut, but it's a fantastic piece of music. Then there's John Williams, of course, and E.T. and everything from his 70s, 80s output through the Harry Potter stuff in the 90s and 2000s, and of course the later stuff even. So those are kind of like that's the altar I worship at, I guess you would say, as far as composers. But then there's all the other stuff. There's Charles Bernstein and and basically his work on the Freddy Krueger movies. And
Yeah.
it's someone I've gotten to meet over the last few years. And I'm
Wow.
actually really excited for him to hear this score, particularly because there's a lot of that influence. Speaking of worshiping at altars, They Will Kill You definitely is worshiping at the altar of John Carpenter, I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. And and knowing in terms of your approach, I know you're very keyed in when it comes to characters within the
Yes.
same projects that you have. So I have to ask, because I know that it can be super important when we're talking characters and having a grasp of characters and their journey in a said
Yeah.
project that you're working on.
Yeah.
How early in the process, when it comes to film that you had an opportunity to get the ball rolling? Like, was it early, right in the scripting stage? Was it during dailies, or did it happen like in post with picture lock?
Well, there's an interesting thing going on here because this I'd never really done, man. I This was two things or three things happened. First of all, like one of the things I love to get to do is complex female lead characters seem to be a thing I get to work in. And so I've been able to do that through, there's a show called Lessons in Chemistry, there's one The Queen's Gambit,
Of
there's
course,
Griselda. There are
of
all these
course.
different characters that are really strong lead performances, but also they're very nuanced humans. And being able to do that has been something that feels like it comes back, and there's no different in a way as far as maybe it's more on the surface, but there's a lot going on with Zazie Beetz' performance, which is so much fun, and Mahala's performance as well as the sisters. So to get to answer the question as to how early on, there was I got a script, I read the screenplay, and as I was reading the screenplay, I was thinking, what the hell is this? Like, this is I literally was gonna call my agent, like Bradley, and I was gonna go, dude, what is this? And
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah. I'm
and then I
sure. Yeah,
started, this is crazy. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. As I kept reading,
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
as some of the story points that, if you've seen the movie, there are things that start going really bonkers. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like I started getting excited as I kept going. And I really started to pursue this. I had an interview with Kirill. He was shooting in South Africa, I think it was. And I had a great interview. And sometimes when you have these meetings, you have a great meeting, but they don't hire you. Sometimes you have a terrible meeting and they hire you.
I ain't how you.
Sometimes, or they have a terrible meeting and they don't hire you. It's like it's the spectrum. There has been no math as I've been doing this for years now. There is no actual math. There's just a feeling of, man, it'd be cool if, right? And well, I think what's meant to be is meant to be, but this one I kind of forced
Absolutely.
the hand because I had such a good meeting. And then I was thinking, man, this is a crazy movie. This is just so crazy. I got on his Instagram and I reached out to him a direct message like a month after I'd met him. I was like, I know this is crazy. I've never done this before because I really never done this before. I went straight into the DM thing and I said, you may not remember meeting me. I just want you to know that, man, for some reason, there's something really calling to me about this film. If I could do it, it'd be great. I went all in. And he wrote back, he goes, well, Carlos, we're still, finishing the production and we're in a few weeks, maybe I'll get back to you, blah, blah, blah. And he called me and we started the journey then, right at early steps of post-production. And I don't know, it was a really hard ride after that, but I'll stop now with the question because I just want to answer that first part because I'd never done that way, never done it that
No,
way.
no, absolutely. No, I'm glad you brought that up because that was actually going to be like my next question to you. And
Mm.
talking about, speaking of Kirill, uh, he's gone on record and talking about a lot of the influences that were a part of making this said film, which is fitting based on you talking about having opportunity to look into the story and how bonkers it gets. And I mean, he has a whole a collection of influences, right? Whether we're talking about
Yes,
anime, Sam Raimi, thinking of Evil Dead immediately,
of
Kill
course. Well,
Bill,
that too. Mhm.
spaghetti westerns, etc. So could you
Yeah.
share the challenge once that understanding was there that you guys would be collaborating together on this said film,
Hmm.
uh, trying to provide him and help him realize those said sensibilities because those are very unique
Dude,
aesthetics in terms of
dude,
those different influences. So I
it was
can't
hard, man. And
imagine, the
he
challenge.
said, yeah, he sent an email that said, when I got the gig, he goes, okay, let's build this beast, right? He said that, let's build this beast. I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. And there's no feeling better than getting the gig. It's like getting the gig is like meeting someone for the first time and having their phone number, and you're like, anything could happen. Like, oh my God, this is so exciting. And like the world is an opportunity. And then the work starts. And then it's trying to understand and meet him where he's at, where his
Yeah,
mind is at. And
yeah,
so one of the first efforts I did was get the sister theme. And I wrote this thing on piano and I was like, well, piano would be very nice to offset this very dark story of, the sisters separated, and for the reasons they were, their background is really insane, and it would be great. And I started presenting, and he goes, Carlos, that's very beautiful, but it's not good. Not good for this. And I go, well, what do you mean? And so we started, and off we went. And it so much so that I ended up having to fly out to LA. And I worked with him for like 10 days in the post house where he was working. I set myself up, and I got myself set up. And as I'm setting myself up, he's pacing around me. And I'm getting the keyboard connected and getting everything dialed in. And he goes, you ready? I go, yeah, yeah. I think we're dialed in. He goes, okay, go. And I was like, what do you mean go? I don't write. I've never written in front of anybody ever before. Like, it's never, you write when you go and you write, you have that moment to yourself, you prepare it and you send it. But
Right, you're in
all
your
of a
own
sudden,
little space, but
yeah,
I'm sure I
not with
guess they
Caro, man. He was like, okay, go. And he's just watching me do this. And I'm like, I don't know. It was like, I swear to God, it was the most awesome thing because, I've been doing this for a while, and just to be so vulnerable and finding yourself in such a new challenge was insane. And also he has a language thing because he's, Russian. So he says like, Carlos, I think we need more synthesizers. We need more synthesizers instead of synthesizers. And I never corrected him because I loved him the way he said it. I was like, that's
right,
so
yeah,
cool, dude. And honestly, we kind of went into the trenches together. And what started off as this piano and beautiful melodic kind of invocation of the sisters theme had to find a way to temper or be tempered by the hyperviolence. And so what's the thread? And there came in the synths. And the idea of turning this, what seems very pretty melody on piano, if I were to play it, suddenly is bow, wow, 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 like full on synth from the 80s. And that kind of thing is really what started driving this. And I'm like someone who had never worked on synthesizer, really on synth based scores. And so we ended up getting this incredible blend of synthesizer, orchestra, electric guitars, classical guitars, and here we are. So crazy.
for sure, for sure. And diving deeper into that said journey, the lead that we have in this film, obviously it's a character who's very strong, but there is a lot of vulnerability there. I know Kirill has mentioned still allowing the character to be feminine, even though the character is very strong. So could you
Mhm.
share being able to balance that of we've already talked about it thus far of how crazy of a journey this is, but you
Yeah.
still have to include some elements of vulnerability in what you are having read musically in your scores. So
Hmm.
can you talk a bit about how that process was of being able to find that balance?
Well, because no matter how hyper violent the film got, you still have to protect the actors' performances, I think.
Yeah,
And evolving the sisters theme was all about guarding that genuine emotional core while the world around them goes completely insane. And
for sure.
and the only and so the fact is that the melodies I was writing worked. It was the way in which they were processed that ended up working into picture. So and that's the best way to summarize it. I was writing these melodies that I am a big fan of like as you write a song, if you can write it on guitar and voice or piano and voice or drum and voice, just something, even if it's just a rhyme or a rap or a rhythm or from anything to spoken word to through melodic, it has to hold in its analog self. Then it can translate color wise to whatever the story is demanding. And this story demanded synthesizers. It really did. And it's beckoning. It's like I said, it's worshiping at the altar of Carpenter. And once you had this pretty melody that was originally in piano coming through as the synth, it stuck to picture in a much more interesting way. It made you connect with it. And honestly, the last thing I'll say about that is music, when it's doing its job well, is not something you notice. You just like the scene.
Yeah, it's seamless.
It's
Absolutely.
supposed to be not like hello, unless you're asked to, right? Like it's the montages and those moments. It literally holds the thing together. But the concept of it in its and it became more seamless the more we leaned on synths. That's the best way to put it. It started to work. And that was a fun ride though, man, getting there. Whew, man, a lot of iterations to get there. So anyway.
Yeah, gotcha. And you must be a mom reader because that's what I was going to actually ask you next. Because you more than anyone, uh, with the experience that you had in this field, is as you all know, as composer, sometimes you may have that initial score right, and just as you're continuing along that journey, it can go through so many revisions, so many slight variations and changes. So
Oh yeah.
I don't
Oh yeah.
know if you recall, how deep did it get? Like, did you get to like 15th or 16th, or did I mean? I'm guessing it went probably even deeper than that, or
Oh
is it?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I was there in those 10 days, we did the Asia coming out of the closet sequence. That there's a moment at the beginning when she appears for the first time.
Uh-huh.
It was like note by note by note by note getting it,
Wow.
and then he's like, I love it. And then the next day I was still there. He's like, I don't know if that's the right tempo. Okay, well, let's speed it up. We literally, I mean, I'm not giving him cue sheet because I want to keep all the money. I'm just kidding, but I'm not. But he's doing fine on his side, right? But the fact is that we really did collaborate a lot. This was the best thing about it, is that what I loved about it is that Kiro's attitude is like a kid's. He's like a 4-year-old, and he has a genuine love for this happening. And intent is everything, man. Because as you probably know, like, we're working with people, if they're like about their insecurity and their insecurities coming through, it's a put off. It pushes you away
Yeah,
from wanting to collaborate. But when you see where their heart is, you're in. And with Kirill, I knew where his heart was, so I was willing to go to Mordor all the way with him and drop that ring off, dude. Like, it was straight up
excellent.
for me. I was all about it with him, and because I knew what he wanted. Was it frustrating? Yes, because we all have egos, and in this job, the best way you keep it is by checking the ego out, right? It's about it's the one and one is three. That's the goal. And with Kirill, I think we got to that point. But it's his childishness, if you will. It's sort of like, oh man, it was refreshing to me, actually. And I was like, okay, fine, version 30. Let's try it.
Awesome, awesome,
You
awesome.
know?
And speaking to that, the filmmaking process obviously is a very collaborative one, regardless of whether we're talking about composer, cinematographer, editor, filmmaker, what have you, cast.
Sure.
But as you will know, as a composer, and you us talking about composers earlier, eh, a lot of composers have their stamp, and being able to still provide their touch, so to speak, on a given
Yeah.
score, even if it is to the collaborative, uh, uh, um, for the collaborative well-being of the film, in and of itself. So, in speaking of that,
Hmm.
could you share maybe in doing that score and going through many of the revisions and changes that happened, of still being able to provide your stamp, if you will, of being able to incorporate some elements of perhaps your Latin American heritage, in
Hmm.
terms of being able to imbue that score with touches of that, and if so, could you share?
Yeah, man. No, and thanks for the question. I also teach at the Frost School of Music, and I teach media scoring and production. This is my day job,
Yes,
like
yes,
what I
yes.
do.
Right,
And
right,
what's
right, right.
fun about this is that I'm sharing all my mistakes with them. But they're also 19 to 30 or 25, whatever it is, from undergrads
Right.
and
Yeah.
grads.
Different
So they're
mindset.
like, they don't care. They don't. They're like, okay, old man, that's very cute, but I know what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, I told you. You got to learn sometimes on your own, right? But I get to share the mistakes kind of now with them, and um, I think the reason why I'm setting that up is because at that age, and when you're starting out, you really kind of get obsessed with what is my stamp, as you said, or what is my brand? Who am I? How is it me? How do I? And I do think that there's a big spectrum of people that cannot help but be themselves. And when you hear Cristobal Tapia de Veer's score,
It
it's
shows
him.
through. Yeah.
It's clearly there. Williams, it's very clearly Williams. There's no way. Um,
Zimmer.
but
Yep.
Zimmer sounds like a Zimmer score, and but there are composers. that I don't know it's their score, but it works. And it works great. And I think a lot of us are more like journey folk, like we kind of adapt to it. And I let go of the idea of like, what is my sound? My sound is my craft, my ability to come in elegantly and exit elegantly from a scene musically, and knowing how to kind of what is appropriate for that scene. And one of my biggest efforts has been to do varied styles. And so I'm grateful for an opportunity like They Will Kill You because of that reason, very reason, that it's a horror genre. I mean, it's hyper violence, horror, revenge. It's like it's a certain kind of totally different thing from a Griselda that I did, which was much more operatic for a narco story, or Queen's Gambit for a chess story, which is much more classical and elegantish in a way. And I think the important thing, I think, for us is to be challenged, like I was with this one, because I certainly grew. You know, for me, that's kind of like one of the I came up very clearly, comfortable in the orchestral genre,
Okay.
but having to deal with synths. And I was in a rock band, so I knew the rock stuff, but the synth world was always something that I wasn't very comfortable with. And Carol kept saying we need synthesizers, so off I went, and I had to kind of do that. And being able to grow at my age is a gift, so this one definitely forced me to grow, and I'm glad to be here talking to you about it, that's for sure.
For sure. And I'm glad you brought that up because this would be my last question.
Hmm.
Many of the folks that we have that watch the show with the esteemed guests that we have on this show, they are interested in that said field as well, and getting an idea of what that looks like. So would you say what you were just sharing just now, that trend, is that something that you would impart for those that are trying to enter the field, as kind of just separating yourself from from being able of trying to individualize one's said work, and really just get into that collaborative effort, and really
Yeah.
just buy into that collaborative effort, and it will just show through?
Yeah, I think just putting the hours in literally is you just got to put the work in. You got to keep writing to scenes and write another version. And then when you score a scene, if you're not working, if you're in that place looking for work right now, I would suggest that you grab a scene that's so many are so available now and just score it. And then when you're done doing your best effort, throw it away and score it again. And then when you're done with that one, and you think it's maybe better or worse, score it, throw it away and score it again. I think the work is what creates your sound and your style. And some of us have a much clearer style than others, and I think that's fine. I think the idea is that you know the craft, and the craft is everything for me. The process of making is more important than the output. It's the fact that I learned so many things, and that you can learn so many things by iterating and changing, and more than anything being open to suggestion, and being open to knowing that the thing you made in your mind is great, but it's not their vision. It's just not. And one of the notes I got, or best notes, was when I was working on the Queen's Gambit, was by Scott. He called me, and I sent the scene for the first chess match that there was in the show, and I sent it. And he calls me, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. So my wife was sleeping, so I went into the bathroom, and I closed dark as anything. I'm in the bathroom, and I'm like, "Hello." He goes, "Hey, Carlos, I heard your cue," and I go, "Yes, yes, yes. What did you think?" And he goes, "You're scoring the wrong movie, dude. That's a note. That's a note. That's like, okay, what? Okay, oh my God." And being able to deal with that and come up on the other side, it's the getting up that defines us. And so I would say that get up, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, hold on.
Oh,
There we go. I think I
yeah,
was muted,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
Carlos, thank you so much for sharing some time with us here at Movers and
yeah.
Shakers Unlimited, and look forward to many more scores that you have on the horizon.
Thanks.
Before I let you go, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Oh, Rivera Composer, I think on Instagram, social media. And on Spotify, just look up the stuff They Will Kill You score, and there's other things I've done, and I'm just grateful that you're even asking me for that. I usually don't like to do that, but it's needs to be done. So I'm grateful. I'm really grateful, man. That means a lot to me. So thank you for listening, and thank you for your time, Brandon. It's a real pleasure to get to meet you, man.
Absolutely. So there you guys have it. Again, I want to thank Carlos Rivera, composer of "They Will Kill You." As I said, the film comes out this coming weekend. And again, I'm your host, Brandon Choi, co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. I will see you guys soon. Bye now.